Hi. So the Facebook story has gone into a predictable political slugfest, a BJP versus Congress fight. I'm here to say that's not the lens to understand this story. My name is Anubha Bhonsle and I do the news here without notes. Let's start. You know the basics. Wall Street Journal published a report on August 14th titled Facebook's Hate Speech Rules Collide with Indian Politics. The sum and substance of this journalistic piece is that the platform applied content moderation policies but in a partisan manner. Thus, it turned a blind eye to hate speech. Officials at Facebook India had a role to play. Now, there are lots of unnamed sources in the story, but also some direct corroboration from Facebook itself. The man at the center of this is the BJP's only legislator in Telangana, T. Raja Singh. Frankly, he said all sorts of despicable things for some time now, from raising mosques to killing Rohingya Muslims. I don't want to give more credence to amplify his words any further, and since his accounts are still active and thriving, many of you can go see it for yourself. Now, my guess is anyone would see this as problematic content at the very least. The speeches, the venom, the vitriol will test the most ardent supporters of freedom of speech. In fact, Facebook employees responsible for monitoring content found it deeply problematic as well. They went a step further and flagged T. Raja as quote-unquote a dangerous individual for violating hate speech rules and suggested his account be banned. So, even by Facebook's own standards, his action and words could lead to violence. Now, here's where influence, power, proximity all come into play, and the name of Facebook India's policy head Anki Das, whose job it is to liaison with the government on Facebook's behalf. She, according to the Wall Street Journal report, and mind you, directly corroborated by Facebook and not denied since then, told staff members that punishing violations by politicians from the ruling party would quote-unquote damage the company's business prospects. Now, some would argue what's wrong? This is her job. As a public policy head, it's her job to tell her bosses of the political fallout of their decisions. Pause here. The pragmatism of doing business in India is also not the story here. Was Ms. Das's the last word? Did Facebook's top brass agree with this assessment? What made them turn a blind eye to clear hate speech? Could they have overruled her and banned T. Raja from the platform? Maybe. We don't know. But we know that didn't happen. Why? Number one, just the scale and size of the India market. Number two, when a decision related to hate speech made under the ambit of Facebook's own community standards, mind you, is set aside, it raises worrying issues of trust, intent, political proximity, and the role of individual assessments that, remember, can always be subjective and contextual. Now, Facebook's decisions involving elected representatives actually go through a thorough process. There are internal debates and discussions at the highest level of the company's public policy teams. So, if the choices were banning venomous hate speech or losing political proximity, what did Facebook choose? Well, you know the answer. That also begs the question, would Facebook have come to the same decision if the politician was from another political party? Now, there's another matter that has been raised in the Wall Street Journal story, and it is with regard, I beg your pardon, to Facebook India's press releases on content takedowns during the 2019 general elections. We'll put a link in the description of this video. See the release for yourself. There is mention of one political party clearly, and that's the Indian National Congress. Now, to be absolutely fair to Facebook, it did take down pages with false news that tied to the BJP as well. But it chose not to disclose this information. Again, at the intervention of the public policy head, according to Facebook employees quoted in that piece. So the question that arises is, can Facebook be seen as independent of political influence? Actually, who helps whom? Does the platform help the government or the government help the platform? Well, the response from Facebook has been disappointing and bland, some would say. Regular audits seeking to improve internal processes, etc., etc. Some would say these are vague non-commitments very, very similar to the responses when the Cambridge Analytica case first came to light, on which, mind you, there has been little outcome. Now, chances are Facebook will write this one out as well. In India, there is no unanimity even with the Parliament Standing Committee on whether they can summon them or not. In the United States and Europe, where Facebook faces regulatory challenges, its management has worked in at least trying to control this damage. But in India and in South Asia, it often acts in a rather cavalier and callous manner. Well, that's it for now, of course, till the next post comes along and the next controversy. If you have been watching, thank you very much for your time.